word first to Zita, two ladies, of course. Zita is a professor and dean, but you make your own presentation in Budapest, in Corvinus University in Budapest. Please, Zita, you have the word.
So thank you for the opportunity. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. So I will be talking about a little bit about the European business schools and with relation to the COVID impact, and rather on how it impacted the digital ways of functioning and also the partnerships. So I believe that I have organized a little bit in 5 areas of challenge what we have faced, and the main one was obviously the partnerships, international partnerships at the most. Then about the international student enrollment, the infrastructure for distance learning, which may have existed, but definitely not on the level that the pandemic requested or required. The distance learning competencies of faculty, staff, or even the students, and the soft skill development that is also required more and more by the job market, and it's very challenging to mimic in the digital era. I believe that these problems are not only for European schools, and I'm sure that my colleagues will also have some additional information on that. But from the European business schools perspective, one of the major challenges was, of course, the overseas partnerships, because even, let's say, after almost 2 years, the pandemic, the traveling and study abroad is just picking up. What we have seen is that it was a possibility if the schools, along with the countries, have rolled out the COVID protocol and got the students safe and sound home, it was able to strengthen this trust between the partner universities, which is one of the basic connections and the cornerstone of building a partnership internationally. On the other hand, there was also an increase in cooperation, rather from must than from willingness, if we could say that, because still many of the Asian or overseas campuses or even partners are still have difficulties of letting foreign students in, the other way around. So actually, when you have the international study abroad in the curriculum, then you have to find alternatives for your students. And of course, it was a standard to involve your European partners. So many of the schools have been more flexible, and there was a higher student number going inside between or among the European schools. And of course, there were some new opportunities for Corvinus. It was CLADEA, and focusing on rolling out a more international presence and partnership. On the second level, of course, the student enrollment, a lot of the North American and especially US study abroad students have decreased, and there were decreasing revenues because of the degree or non-degree enrollments. And still, unfortunately, we do experience yet a problem with consulate visa processes. So even though that the students would like to come, there is a possibility. A lot of times there is a difficulty for getting visas. And then we arrive from one of the questions that was also raised for the infrastructure, and most of the schools have used already digital platforms, but definitely not for 10, 15,000 students. So that was a very different weight on the whole system, which hardly survived, I have to say, I believe, in most schools at the very beginning. Now, most of the schools have acquired professional systems, not only for teaching, but also for admission interviews or proctored examinations, and obviously the increasing reach for global recruitment today is a lot easier, let's say, and more user-friendly. I would also add the birth of a common digital platform for most universities. So we don't really have to train anymore the students on which platforms to use, and they don't have to jump. There is the post or the aftermath, the very positive impact is that even if there are no full online degrees, maybe, so not the mode of teaching hasn't been restructured completely, but some parts definitely. There are recorded lectures for online studies, which means that the facility management is easier. There is more possibilities to have smaller groups because you actually kind of prescribe pre-readings, and therefore also more flexible management of the incoming student enrollment. A downside that I would like to mention that we see is that the divide between students who have access to the internet, or let's say adequate access to the internet, and students who do not has greatened. We can see that if the location or the countries have difficulties of internet access, that may hinder the possibilities of those students as well. The next one I mentioned is the soft skill development. I'm sure that every country is experiencing a strong input from the job market and from the industries to increase the soft skill trainings of the students. The artificial intelligence has a lot to do with cognitive skills, and they are, and one of the key advances is to build on teamwork and problem solving and complexities, and the way which made it possible was the more simulation games and teamwork. And for example, international joint corporations like courses like COIN, which is provided also by CLADEL. And the last part that I would like to mention, which I see for Europe, is of course the training, the competences for staff, but mostly for faculty. There is an ongoing training also because the platforms are improving, but a great gain is that it became an everyday working possibility through these Zoom or Teams platforms, and the international distances have been shortened. It also, just to say that, or basically closing down, that a great experience is that we have to conclude that at the same time, even though that we have very good digital platforms and now we are capable of using them accordingly as well, but it's not possible to switch face-to-face or relationships or personal meetings in an online digital era. So that is still there, and it's still necessary for students, for partners, and also for staff and faculty.
I believe we can now ask Thomas how the things are looking like in the United States, in Richmond.
My school is a bit unusual in many ways, in that we are a small private university, considered a liberal arts college, but we have a thriving business school, an excellent law school. We were the first school in the United States to have a standalone school of leadership studies. And then we also have a school of professional and continuing education that works with local folks in terms of their continuing education. The business school here at Richmond has been accredited by AACSB since 1965. We currently have approximately 600 business school majors and another 300 or so waiting in the wings, if you will. We don't accept students into the business school until they start their third year. So, and it's a separate, it's not an application process, but they have to meet certain criteria to qualify. As you can imagine, with the total enrollment at the university, undergraduate enrollment of approximately 3,300 students, our classes are small. We pride ourselves on being a very high touch, if you will, institution, close student-faculty relationships. The pandemic and having to shut down, if you will, and move everything to online was a shock to the system of all our students and of our faculty members as well. In fact, in the business school, we had a policy that we would not teach remotely. We just wouldn't do it. Everything had to be in person. So we had to rethink all of that. And needless to say, while we had the basic infrastructure, we didn't have at that time what it took to really do what had to be done for all our students, including international students who were stuck in their home countries, who couldn't get back to the United States. So that was a case where our partnerships actually strengthened quite a bit. We had a number of our four-year degree-seeking students who ended up staying either in Europe or Asia and attending partner schools, not in a traditional study abroad process like we would normally do, but in some cases for a year or longer, and it strengthened the relationships with our partner schools. We're an institution, the business school sends approximately 61% of its undergraduates abroad before they graduate. So a vast majority, well, I say a vast majority, but a significant majority of our students have an international experience. The thing that we are wrestling with now, and we are back with study abroad active. Zita knows that because she's got a number of our students in Budapest. But it hurt us, if you will, because there are many students who want to study abroad who are unable to do so. And that's one of the things that we keep wrestling with, is how do we provide a cultural or a cross-cultural experience for those students who can't go abroad. Now, to some extent, this is being mitigated because we're back in more or less a normal operation. But there are many schools in the United States that still aren't in a normal situation. If you think about schools in the US, we've got state universities, public universities, if you will. We've got private, and on the private side, we've got for-profit as well as nonprofit institutions. I would argue, and I don't have data to back this up, I would argue that many of the for-profit institutions probably handled COVID better than the rest of us because they were doing so much online anyway. That was how they appealed to their market in general. I guess with most things, there's good and bad to events, if you will, to phenomenon. The pandemic created opportunities for us before that didn't exist before, or at least it opened our eyes to opportunities. For example, different ways of providing cultural experiences for our students, getting more and more of the necessary infrastructure so we could do more joint teaching with partners abroad. So we could set up cross-country, if you will, I shouldn't say cross-country, cross-continent student team projects. And we could meet with our colleagues so much more easily. Things that in the past we just simply didn't do. It also forced us to, as I tell my colleagues, to at least get into the 20th century, if not the 21st century, in terms of some of the infrastructure that's required to be successful in an environment like this. Now, one of the things I might note in doing research for this brief presentation, undergraduate enrollment in the U.S. this year alone is down over 3%. So it's had an impact on student engagement or student enrollment, if you will. At the graduate level, I can't say for sure, but I do know in the U.S. There has been a decrease in the interest in MBA programs. And we have a small, what we consider a fairly exclusive MBA program. We've only got about 70 students, but if interest starts to wane on that, we feel the pinch, and certainly there are revenue implications for that. On a broader societal level, and I think Zita touched on this, one of the things that the pandemic has showed us is that as a country, we are lacking in infrastructure so that all citizens can participate in distance learning and education. We just, there are many parts of the country where there's no good internet access. There are people who in some cases can't afford what it takes to have internet access. And this is especially true for the elementary and secondary education, where everything's switched online, and we just weren't up to steam in many parts of the country to be able to handle that effectively. So I guess in conclusion, we're moving back to normal. My school is in essence normal right now. The only thing we have to do is we wear masks in classrooms or in offices in confined spaces. Outside, there are no masks. And, you know, between you and me, I'm sure the students in their housing and social get-togethers are not wearing masks. But we also have a mandate. Mandate's too strong a word. We work very hard to make sure our students and faculty and staff are vaccinated. At this point in time, we have roughly 97% of our undergraduates are fully vaccinated, and roughly 94% of the faculty and staff are vaccinated. The university has not gone so far as to say you have to have a vaccination, but we have to check in every day to report whether or not we have any sort of COVID symptoms and so on and so forth. And we still have facilities on campus where we can quarantine students where it's necessary.
Jérôme, can you make a small presentation of what was this inquiry of EE.UU and the contribution of EE.UU to this analysis of the post-COVID situation in the world? Thank you, Jérôme.
It's a pleasure for me to be among you and among Clayda friends. So Clayda is a member of EE.UU Network. So I will perhaps give a view on perhaps the French perspective, as I was dean of the former dean of a university business school in France, large one, the Lyon School of Management, but also I'm also executive director of IESM, the European Institute for Advanced Studies in Management. So it's perhaps more the doctoral focus. I will end with that, and I will focus more perhaps on indeed the discussion that we have had among the members of EE.UU Network. So EE.UU Network is a network around quality where you have a broad number of type of institutions. We have organization representing business school. We have also organization representing alumni of business school. We have also accreditation bodies. So it's a wide system. It's a network of network. And here we have done at the beginning of January a large survey, and the survey has been also forwarded to the member of Claudia, thanks to Mariana. But among the different questions, in fact, that we were focusing, first there was the question of the three top lesson learned from the crisis by the business school. And I would say that here, in fact, perhaps the major point that we can see are regarding digital learning for sure, but also being able to manage a virtual community. So it was one of the strong learning, how to manage a learning community. Also, positive effect were among the fact that we realized that sometime in higher education, we are considered as being a little bit with a certain inertia in the system. And in fact, we realized that we were quite flexible, even in public institutions, and we have done fast moving in the system. So I think that it was something really important in terms of learning. For sure, the learning, also the lesson are around the fact that we have to be able to manage more blended learning. So here it has some consequences. It's far more complex, and also we have to rethink the delivery mode, but we have also to think new higher education model. And perhaps last item, which is not the least one, but last but not least, being conscious of the psychological well-being of students, which was a very important lesson from the crisis. After, second domain was around how business education will evolve in 3-5 years. Here, the major results from that question, when we try to have a synthesis, is around the life on campus will change significantly. That's the first dimension. Second one is regarding internationalization. The way it is done will have to change. And I think that we are facing that at the current time. And the last dimension was around the fact that business schools have to work even more on their positive impact on society. And that's something which is really shared among all the members. And last domain, if I may, just to finish perhaps with that, was around the influence of the business school model, the crisis, the impact on the business school model. And here, in fact, one of the principal goals now is the integration to traditional learning approach with a mindset of digital world. And it seems to be something really important. Also, the need to strengthening the evidence-based approach as the world is flooded with unproven elements and learning. So how we can impose, in fact, a successful model for business. And perhaps a last dimension in the influence to business school model is around the fact of reinventing for some schools the offers, the sales strategy, because we are even more in a global competition with the online programs. So I would say that's perhaps globally the lesson that we have learned from our exchanges. And if I may, last dimension around doctoral education in Europe, what we have learned from the last 18 months. At EE.UU, we are providing doctoral seminars, and the aim is to have international exchanges and to provide, in fact, that residence feeling and to build the networks for the future. And so we have moved everything to online. And at the present time, what is really difficult is to go back to face-to-face because we don't know exactly. So we are starting again, but in the same time, we can see that there are some evolution in the behavior of PhD students. They want to travel less, and they want, it's quite contradictory because they don't want to have even more online doctoral seminars, but they want to reduce their travel. So we need to invent some new type of doctoral education for sure. And also to be able to help PhD students to develop their community, their international community with new modes. So that will be the major learning from the last months. Thank you.
Thank you, Jérôme, for all your explanation, particularly, of course, of the impact on doctoral studies and doctoral programs and the relation to PhD students. I mean, it will be probably an interesting point for the discussion at the end. I believe we will ask now Peng Lu to speak us about the situation in Miami and maybe too about the situation in Beijing. I believe your university is located, or your partner university is located in Beijing. I did visit that university. This is a bright university, and I'm very happy to have you here to speak about the same topic, post-COVID, from your point of view. Thank you very much.
My topic is a little bit of today's pandemic management thing, because I don't work in a business school. But what I can see for Miami is that FIU now is about to resume normal face-to-face teaching. However, international students come to Miami, come to FIU, it's much less this year, much fewer. And for China, inside China, the pandemic is very minor. So all schools are open normally. However, international travels are tightly controlled, especially for their policy of the 14-day quarantine, which is a must for everybody entering China. This is a major problem for international travel to the country. Note that UIB's 70-year anniversary last month, almost no international travelers. All activity internationally only on Zoom. Actually, my talk today is about FIU, for the international university. So participating in the $0.6 billion UIBE Qingdao International Platform Project. I'd like to excuse for my poor English, but this is the only language that I can communicate with you, because I don't know Spanish, and I guess you, most of you, if not all, cannot talk in Chinese. Ironically, this is exactly a reflection of the difficulty in trade between China and Latam. China, from a poor country to the second economy in the world, also is the largest manufacturer of the world, and the largest buyer of many goods such as copper, iron, soybean, those produced in Latin America. However, the direct trade between Latin America and China is very limited, very small. Most trade through middlemen, multi-level distribution channels. In general, the barrier for trade between China and Latin America are: one, credit. People don't know each other, so no credit in between. Two, the most importantly, information. China have a lot of information. Latin America have a lot of information, but the information does not exchange much. So this issue actually is our professor at School of Business to study and to find a solution. Let's talk a little bit about UIBE, because I know most of you know FIU, but UIBE, maybe you do not know much. UIBE is a University of International Business and Economics. It's the best university in business in China. Recently, they got 4 billion RMB, is about $0.6 billion US dollar, to build a Qingdao international platform for business education and research. If anyone of you is interested in the detail of it, I'd like to provide you with more information after the meeting, after our Zoom today. They invited London School of Economics, Humboldt University of Berlin as a European representative, and FIU of North America, and Singapore National of Asia. They are very much interested in adding a university in Latin America. If anyone of you are interested in that, you can contact them, or you can we can help you to contact to URDE. The platform actually is a big campus. It gives each of the universities a building to use only for you, and on their cost, of course. And you teach your students, or most of the students are Chinese enrolled in China. So FIU is going to teach our international business there. The reason FIU got invited, and the reason we are confident we want to do a good job there, because we are the #2 in international business in the world and in the US ranking. And actually, Miami is a gateway for Latin America. So we can also serve as a link between Latin America and Far East. So just pretty much I want to use your time for this information. And the building already been built in Qingdao, China. By the way, Qingdao is the 11th largest city in China with about 10 million population of 10 million. And Qingdao has the #7 largest port of the world. So it's a very important import and export city of China. That's why they give UIB $0.6 billion for this big project, and ask would like your UIB to invite good schools of business to Qingdao. And so the students are mainly from China, and they pay the tuition. There are a lot of details I'd like to provide with you if you are interested in. Okay, this is pretty much I want to say today. This is a Peng Lu at FIU. Thank you, everybody.
I will now, for the final presentation, ask Horacio, as a representative of a Latin American business schools in Santiago de Chile and Valparaiso, Chile, to speak with us about your Chilean experience of the post-COVID time and your considerations and ideas. Thank you very much, Horacio.
Estuve juntando algunas ideas para compartir con todos ustedes. Creo que lo más importante es hacer como la declaración que claramente lo hago desde una escuela de negocios que es bastante compleja y grande, creo yo, en el contexto latinoamericano. Somos una escuela triple acreditada, que tenemos la particularidad de, por más que somos una escuela de negocios, tenemos un pregrado muy grande. Por lo tanto, algunos de los impactos que han tenido que ver con quizás una menor matrícula a nivel de posgrado le hemos podido superar de mejor forma gracias a la matrícula de pregrado. Pero acá lo que traigo son algunas ideas que nos pueden servir tanto como en pre como en posgrado, ¿no? Y básicamente creo que lo primero que tenemos que, first things first, ¿no? Creo que como industria, ¿no? Como uno puede decir, colectividad académica, hemos demostrado una resiliencia y la capacidad de transformarnos, que creo que muchos no nos confiaban que pudiéramos hacerlo, ¿no? Tener este nivel de agilidad, pero creo que lo hemos hecho genial. O sea, hemos sido capaces de movernos tanto nuestras instituciones como nosotros como profesores al mundo virtual de una forma que me parece bien destacable. Ahora, en ese contexto, algunas ideas desde Latinoamérica. Creo que la primera, en nuestra región al menos, igual ustedes, mis colegas, lo destacaban también en sus distintas regiones. En nuestra región, la verdad que la virtualidad o irnos a virtual demostró que todavía tenemos un gap digital muy grande en la región. Incluso creo que nuestra respuesta como institución es tan fuerte, irnos a la virtualidad tan rápido, incluso hizo ese gap más amplio. Por lo tanto, ahí creo que hay un gran desafío, al menos en nuestra región, que hay que considerarlo. Nuestros estudiantes en general han valorado mucho lo virtual, pero hay como una valoración de mayor valor, que es la experiencia en el campus, ¿no? O sea, están contentos con la experiencia, pero claramente esa experiencia en el campus la valoran mucho y la sienten que la han perdido. Y por otro lado, y esto creo que es una realidad que nos afecta mucho más a nosotros en Latinoamérica y a todos mis colegas que están más en Latinoamérica, tiene que ver con que el mercado cambió, para nosotros cambió y cambió fuerte, porque grandes players, ¿no? Con grandes marcas han entrado a nuestra región muy fuerte, y creo que todavía no sabemos quiénes van a ser los ganadores y los perdedores de esa entrada sobre todo a nivel de posgrado que hemos tenido, ¿no? Entonces, hay tres grandes ideas que las he resumido en esta idea de, creo que para enfrentar esta nueva realidad, o sea, esta nueva virtualidad, necesitamos tres grandes ideas: ecosistemas, evolución y engagement, ¿no? Ecosistemas con respecto a cómo podemos identificar y evaluar oportunidades para localizar conocimiento global a la realidad de nuestra región. Creo que ahí hay una gran oportunidad como para, de cierta forma, y ahí Zita también lo mencionaba, y Tomás también lo mencionaba, ¿no? Cómo colaborar para traer conocimiento global y aplicarlo a los desafíos de nuestra región. Evolucionar, creo que hemos demostrado que somos capaces de evolucionar, pero que no sea un volver atrás, que no sea como un elástico, ¿no? Creo que tenemos que seguir adoptando un nuevo mindset. Creo que es un nuevo mindset, no son solo técnicas, es un nuevo mindset, y cómo nuestras instituciones movilizan recursos para apalancar, ¿no? De forma más ágil y selectiva lo que hemos aprendido. Y claramente creo que este es el gran desafío, cómo en un mundo virtual podemos apalancar el engagement y las relaciones interpersonales que claramente se han terminado, ¿sí? Rápidamente, por cada una de estas tres ideas, cuando hablo de ecosistema, y esto muy inspirado en nuestro former dean, en Ralph Boschek, con quien hemos hablado mucho de esto, cómo nos podemos en nuestra región mantener globales, pero enfocados en los desafíos de la región, ¿no? Estamos en la tercera mayor economía como región del mundo, y la gran pregunta es si nuestras organizaciones, nuestras empresas, pensando como escuelas de negocio, van a poder competir de la misma forma que se compite en el resto del mundo, ¿no? Entonces ahí hay una gran oportunidad de cierta forma colaborar entre nuestras instituciones y con la industria para empezar a resolver problemas reales de nuestra región, ¿no? Debe haber gente de Colombia, y cada vez cuando uno habla con Colombia dice, bueno, los desafíos de la logística en Colombia, bueno, ¿cómo la podemos ver? Que probablemente no son los mismos, ¿no? O los desafíos de Chile, este país tan largo en el que me toca vivir. Yo soy uruguayo, pero que tengo el honor de vivir por más de 10 años. Entonces, ¿cómo podemos realmente lograr un buen engagement con la industria para básicamente, creo que ese es el gran desafío, para básicamente apalancar los recursos de la industria y de cierta forma esos tomarlos y hacer de cierta manera desarrollos nuevos desde el punto de vista académico? Y ahí mi gran pregunta, y se la dejo, no sé si tal vez que la podemos discutir, ¿qué es primero, si el huevo o la gallina, ¿no? O sea, ¿qué hacemos? Primero, nosotros como instituciones académicas nos ponemos a crear contenido para nuestra región y después vamos a buscar a la industria, o vamos a buscar a la industria para crear este contenido. Creo que ahí hay un desafío que tenemos que reflexionar. El otro tema que les dejaba como idea es esta de la evolución, ¿no? ¿Cómo podemos adoptar realmente un nuevo mindset, ¿sí? A nivel de nuestro teaching. Y acá les dejo algunas cosas que hemos estado haciendo en nuestra escuela de negocios, ¿no? O sea, obviamente que todos estamos acá, todos sabemos dar clases, ¿no? O sea, ¿cómo podemos ir evolucionando hacia acá arriba? Creo que la pandemia nos pegó un golpe para hacerlo, pero todavía nos queda un montón, ¿no? Nos queda un montón de cómo podemos realmente hacer dos cosas, ¿no? Por un lado, ver cuál es la práctica adecuada para el momento adecuado, si tiene que ser siempre virtual, ¿sí? En nuestro caso, por ejemplo, estamos con un gran desafío de decir, bueno, nos tenemos que ir all in, ¿no? Ahí está, dentro de la audiencia está Andrés Toledo, que es presidente de CLADEA, pero aparte profesor de nuestra escuela, dirige uno de nuestros programas, y tenemos como esta discusión, ¿no? ¿Cuándo realmente nos vamos a nuevos formatos que han demostrado ser muy atractivos para nuestros estudiantes, sobre todo en posgrado? Nosotros en pregrado, de la misma forma, Tomás, que ustedes tienen en su institución, nosotros posgrado queremos que vuelva a presencial. Y ahí tenemos que ver cómo vamos a hacer para que las instancias virtuales tengan mucho valor, ¿no? Pero, de nuevo, creo que acá hay dos grandes desafíos. Uno, a nosotros como profes, yo soy profe, como todos ustedes también, o sea, ¿cuál va a ser nuestro rol en esta nueva realidad, ¿no? O sea, ¿vamos a desaparecer? ¿Vamos a tener un avatar? ¿O vamos a tener seguir teniendo trabajo? Y ahí hay un tema importante. Y por otro lado, ¿cuál va a ser el rol del campus? Esa es una discusión que nosotros estamos teniendo internamente. Nosotros tenemos unos campus hermosos, de hecho yo hoy estoy en la montaña, aquí en Santiago, pero está vacío el campus. O sea, por más que hemos querido volver a la presencialidad, todavía hay un gran desafío de cómo vamos volviendo a los campus y qué rol van a tener los campus. Y el último, creo que esta es la única verdad. Si ustedes me preguntan cuál es la única verdad post-COVID, es esta, y estoy citando acá, hay un foro de la OECD que me gusta visitar para ver este tipo de cosas. La única verdad es que los alumnos se sintieron abandonados, ¿no? Se sintieron abandonados en el sentido de que se perdió el engagement estudiante-estudiante, estudiante-nosotros, estudiante-la universidad, e incluso estudiantes con muchas clases con su propia disciplina, ¿no? Entonces ahí hay un gran desafío. Entonces creo que la gran pregunta es cómo vamos a apalancar la tecnología para realmente crear y desarrollar esta red que es tan importante para nuestros estudiantes. Una red una red que finalmente tiene como una característica virtual, pero también presencial. Y una cosa que yo aprendí, acá hay algunos tips de lo que he aprendido durante el programa: comunicar. Es la única forma de que no se sientan abandonados por la universidad. Uno muchas veces, estando en el día a día, piensa que nuestros alumnos están súper engaged con la institución, pero hay que estar permanentemente comunicando. Y después del programa, yo creo que nuestro contenido académico, si es relevante, puede ser un icebreaker para empezar a crear, o sea, como sentido de pertenencia, pero la verdad que queda corto. Y después ahí, en nuestra experiencia, todos los eventos más sociales, híbridos, han fallado para crear network de verdad. Por lo tanto, vamos a tener que aprender a mezclar lo full virtual y aprovechar el poder estar, la omnipresencialidad en muchos países. En nuestro caso tenemos egresados en toda Latinoamérica, por lo tanto es súper importante para nosotros esto, pero el face-to-face sigue siendo súper importante. Así que para terminar desde nuestra mirada, ¿no? All in all, creo que hay grandes desafíos, ¿no? pero muchísimas oportunidades, y ojalá podamos ahora comentarlos entre todos, ¿no? Así que bueno, eso. Gracias.